Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Another day, another preview.
This is one that many years ago would have been excellent, but now in the new modern day era of offensive football, Alabama's favored by 18.5 points in this one. 3:30 affair at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Over/under on this one is 62 points. Let's get into it. Alabama versus Miami. Alabama, again, 18.5 point favorites. The number 1 ranked team is an 18.5 point favorite over the number 14 ranked team. That's just absurd to me, but that speaks volumes to what offenses look like these days. Nick Saban looking for his 7th national championship at the University of Alabama, his 8th overall. And if he does it this season, he will have absolutely earned it because there is so much turnover in Alabama's system this season in everything. Coaching staff, all the way to the offense and the defense, particularly the offense. Let's see what they lost on offense, and it was a lot. I'm telling you, if Alabama can get it done this season, it will be historic. It will be better than anything they've ever really done out of all the great things they've done, because this turnover, although they've seen plenty of it in the past, is just insurmountable. It's unreal. Mac Jones, 77.4% completion percentage last season, 4,500 yards on the nose, exactly 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. That is the quarterback you're going to try to replace. Good luck. Najee Harris, 1,466 yards last season, 5.84 yards per carry, and 26 touchdowns. Some of these stats that I'm looking at, I had to make sure that wasn't the career stats that I was looking at. It was so freaking high. 117 receptions for DeVonta Smith, 1,856 yards and 23 touchdowns. Good Lord. Jaylen Waddle, 6 games. Obviously, he was injured. 28 grabs, 591 yards, 4 touchdowns. So much production in that well-oiled machine that is the Alabama Crimson Tide. Wow. Still though, this is a new era for Alabama, and they do have Bryce Young out of the 2020 class, number 2 nationally overall, 5-star quarterback. Let's talk the quick bad on him. There's not much. He needs to bulk up. He's got a very slight figure. I don't know how much bulking up he's done. Maybe some of you avid Alabama fans can tell me that in the comments below. I'm sure he's been hitting the weight room hard. He's had some time to do it. Hopefully he's got a little bit bigger than what he was out of high school, because he'll need it if he wants to not only compete at Alabama and at the collegiate level, but also go on to the big leagues, which is pretty much everybody's goal. The other knock on him that a lot of people say is that he holds the ball low. That can obviously be bad. It can make it hard it can make an extended throwing motion. You can fumble the ball a lot because defenders are able to snap down on it, things of the sort. But there's plenty of good about Bryce Young. In fact, way too much for me to have to go over in this one video, so I will bring it down to a small synopsis here. He has a quick release to compensate for holding the ball low. He throws well in the pocket and on the run, and that's a big thing with him. He's a big improviser. He helps his receivers get open in a great way because he's able to extend these plays with his legs and continues to look downfield, doesn't tuck the ball too soon. And one thing that's huge about Bryce Young, a great thrower both in the pocket and on the run. And that's becoming more and more of a common thing these days, but Bryce Young does it exceptionally well, and he should be the next big thing at Alabama. Nice touch on the deep ball as well, and you know he's going to get plenty of receivers open for said deep ball this season and probably in this game against Miami. One of those receivers is John Metchie III. He returns at wide receiver, 55 receptions last season, 916 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So Metchie, the thing about Alabama receivers is they have pretty good seasons the year before, and then they just absolutely blow up the very next season because that's them getting their full extended opportunity. I don't think John Metchie is going to be the exception there. In a good way, he's going to be very productive, probably their leading receiver this year, and obviously they have a slew of talent outside of him. Alabama, we're going to say these words a lot in this video, plug and play at the University of Alabama. It's been that way for years. No reason to think otherwise. It's just how plug and play can it actually be with the amount of player personnel turnover they've had. Running backs, they should be fine. Obviously, you're losing Najee Harris, who's already looking like quite the stud for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kudos to anybody who took Najee Harris over Travis Etienne in their fantasy football draft. They have the number 1 running back in the 2019 class in Trey Sanders, 2 top 10 running backs in the 2020 class in Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams, and the number 2 running back in the 2021 class in Kamar Wheaton. Goodness. I wish Michigan was Alabama. There was once upon a time when Alabama had 12 national championships, Michigan had 11, and I was like, can we catch them? The answer to that is no. Never will we catch them. They just continue to get better and better. 3 offensive linemen gone from last season, but again, plug and play. And you're going against the Miami defense this season, which I'm trying not to be too hard on Miami. This is more kudos to Alabama than it is a knock on Miami. So sorry to you Miami fans who might get upset at this, but man, this is not who you want to be playing the first game of the season, that's for sure. Miami's last regular season game last year gave up 62 points to North Carolina, to the North Carolina Tar Heels. Obviously, Sam Howell is one heck of a quarterback there, but still 62 points is unforgivable. Manny Diaz did make some changes, as he did in year 1 on the offensive end. He's going to be calling things on his own for the defensive side of the ball. No defensive coordinator at Miami, and I'm just not a fan of that. I'm not going to question Manny Diaz too much because we'll talk later. He made a great move on the offensive side of the ball when a lot of people wouldn't have pulled that trigger last season, but I'm just not a fan of that. How can you be a head coach and manage your staff and manage your players in a game when they're going to need you when you're so focused elsewhere on calling the defensive plays as well and getting them set up for the next defensive possession? I think that's going to be tough. I'm not a fan of that, but we'll see how it goes. If I'm a Miami fan, I'm open to it because they had to make a move. It can't get much worse than what it was last season. So many question marks on that defensive side of the ball. A lot of pieces on the defensive side of the ball, coaching staff-wise as a whole, not just with that defensive coordinator slot. But the counter argument to that, again, they had to do something. They'll look to replace 3 NFL-bound defensive ends, and they're going to have to clean up that linebacker core in a big way. That linebacker position group, along with the front 4, gave up 554 rushing yards in that abysmal performance against North Carolina. They lost that game 62-24, and it's not just that game. So let's just point that out. Yes, they gave up 62 points to North Carolina. They gave up 554 rushing yards, but they also gave up 34 to Louisville early in the season, 42 to Clemson. I mean, a lot of teams are going to give up a lot of points to Clemson. 41 to North Carolina State and 37 to Oklahoma State. Man, they got some work to do. And again, Alabama's not the team you want to see when you have some work to do on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, though, I mentioned they fired Dan Enos after that abysmal, terrible performance in 2019. And that was good for Manny Diaz. I highly questioned it. It was all over ESPN and everywhere, man. He is brave enough to do this in just his early tenure at Miami, and it paid off for him in a huge way. So kudos to Manny Diaz. He hired offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley. Lashley got rid of the pro-style offense, went straight to the spread, up-tempo offense, and that was a great idea, especially when you're talking about D'Eriq King, a guy who can make plays with his feet and with his arm. With his legs and with his arm. He is an athlete, and so that's what you want to do in that situation. That's what I would have liked to have seen Michigan do a lot of with Shea Patterson back in the day. We didn't really do enough of it, in my opinion. Not enough of him being able to utilize his legs to then make plays downfield. Harbaugh, Gaddis. This isn't a Michigan review video, so we'll go on. D'Eriq King last season, obviously a beneficiary of that Lashley offense. 64.1% completion percentage, 2,686 yards, 23 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. A guy who can really take care of the football. That is going to be huge in a game like this. Can't afford turnovers against Alabama, especially on your side of the field. 538 rushing yards to boot, as well as 4 touchdowns. Again, he's an athlete, he's a stud, but the question mark is going to be, how much can he do to help his team in this one. I mean, you're going to have to score a lot of points because the defense, I think, is going to give up a lot. Of course, he tore his ACL last season. Can he recover fully from it? That's going to be a big deal as a guy who has torn both ACLs and both knees. I can tell you, man, it's different. It's different psychologically, physically. You feel different. You don't feel as capable of doing the things that you used to do. Now, I'm not exactly privy to the kind of care and precision in doctors that D'Eriq King was privy to, but it's tough. It is absolutely tough, so we'll see how that goes. I'm rooting for him in that regard, for sure. I'm always going to root for a guy to come back from injury. I don't root for them to happen in the first place. Running backs Cameron Harris, Donald Chaney Jr., and Jalen Knighton all ran for at least 4 yards per carry last season. They all returned, so that's a good thing, but again, you're going against Alabama's defense, which we'll get into shortly. We're not going to talk too much about that. But I don't expect for them to get 4 yards per carry in this game. Let's just say that. Wide receiver Mike Hartley can possibly break all-time records at Miami this season for receptions and receiving yards. So, yes, this is a new era, an evolved era of passing attack. And so you're going to see some of those records broken at every school, but still very impressive. He's a very talented receiver. A lot of talent for Bama's defense. Same thing, can they clean some of these things up that they did have issues with last year? Yes, an undefeated team last season won the national championship game, but they did have 4 instances where they gave up 410 yards or more, 4 games where they did so. That sounds good for most schools. For Alabama, it's unacceptable. They'll look to clean that up, but that's nitpicking at this point. It's nitpicking. Plug and play is the word. We won't go into Alabama's defense too much. They lost Patrick Surtain among other players for sure, but as we all know, we've seen over the years, they've proven, so I don't need to talk about it, that they can just develop and go right into it the next season and use those studs that they recruit, and they come in quickly, young, fresh, ready to go. So plug and play are the words. How plug and play are they? We're going to find out. I don't necessarily know if we're going to find out for sure in this game. Again, Alabama's an 18.5 point favorite, so I don't know how plug and play you actually have to be. It won't matter in this one, in my opinion. Miami will not be able to establish a running game. That's going to be huge for them to be able to open up the playmaking ability of D'Eriq King, but because they won't be able to, D'Eriq King is going to be running for his life in this one. Now, I don't expect him to make too many errors, but he'll probably make a couple, maybe a couple interceptions in this one. And only threw 5 all of last season, mind you. But when you're starting to have to force some throws downfield and do some things that you're not necessarily comfortable with because you don't have a running game, and as a result, Alabama's ready to press their ears back on the rush and then sit back in coverage, he's going to have a tough time, man. He's going to have a tough time, and no one man can have all that power. You've heard that in a rap song before. Alabama should score in bunches despite the turnover. They're still very talented. Bryce Young can absolutely sling it. I don't think they're going to have any issues there. So, what's the final score going to be? Well, for the over-under, 62. Again, this isn't a betting channel. It's an entertainment channel, but I just give this information because I know people are going to ask for it anyways. I'm going to go 62 on the button in this one. I'm calling for a push, so I would stay away from the over-under talk. If it were me. 45-17, Alabama gets the W, starts out 1-0. Miami starts out 0-1, but they have a lot in front of them after that. So once you get that game over with, you know, you just look to the rest of the schedule and start to improve from there. And I'll be rooting for them should they see Clemson along the line. So that's the prediction, 45-17. Alabama covers in this one. They were 18.5 point favorites. They win by 28. That is my guess. Let me know what your guess is below in the comments. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing. Like the video if you liked it. We'll see you in future preview videos, and we're going to have reaction videos once the season starts. Lots of fun stuff ready for the channel. Until then, this is On Tap Sports, the channel that covers all the sports all the time with a primary focus on football and an even more primary focus on college football. We'll see you next time. God bless. Take care. Have an excellent day.